No, that's all I was gonna say.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, well, thank you guys all for joining. It means a lot to us. And oh yeah, no, yes, we love it. Yeah, so let's get right into it. So our presentation, we titled it From Roots to Canopies. First, because, oh, can I get the first slide, Bree, please? Sorry, thank you. We titled it From Roots to Canopies because we want to take you guys on a process from where Stockton is, where it has been, and where we want it to be. And the subtitle is Urban Green Demands a Team because the process can't be made without you guys. And so that's why we need a team. So we are going to be presenting this today, Carice and I, and we want to give a big shout out to Bree and Nico that are our moderators. Bree is sharing her screen and Nico will be in charge of the chat. So thank you guys. And if I could have the next slide, Bree, please. And I'll give the floor to Carice so she can introduce herself first.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Carice Gorzo. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm an Ilocana born and raised in North Stockton. I went to high school in Lodi at Jim Elliott, and last year I graduated from Westmont College and got my bachelor's degree in sociology. And growing up in one of the wealthier neighborhoods in Stockton, I do want to acknowledge that I have an experience of Stockton that is different. And a lot of the issues we will be learning about today are issues that I did not have to face as a result. But I am thankful to be a part of bringing equity to all of Stockton, to be sharing space with you all today, and to be co-leading with Anait, who brings her experience and perspective being from Southeast Stockton. And a few hobbies of mine are going on dates with myself or my friends. Honestly, I haven't done that in a while, but and then journaling and most recently reading. And I'll pass it on to Anait.
Thank you so much, Carice. And yeah, those self dates are like so needed. Yeah, so like I said before, my name is Anait and my last name is Corona. I go by she, her pronouns, and I live in the southeastern part of Stockton. So I went and graduated from Franklin High School and I attended San Joaquin Delta College. I'm currently at Stan State too, and I'm majoring in criminal justice. I'm also a Little Manila environmental justice youth advocate, and some of my hobbies include art, which like goes across the spectrum, like from drawing, dancing, especially to like Mexican music, reading, and working out. Okay, with that being said, thank you. Thank you, Brie. And with that being said, we also want to emphasize what to expect and let you guys know the outline of our presentation. So first, we're going to go over where are we now. So part one, we're going to get to the causes and effects as to what brought us here. And excuse me, where are we now and how did we get here is the second point that we're going to discuss. So we're going to get to the root of the problem, and then we're going to discuss where are we now, part two. And this is going to get more into the working together spectrum. And the final section is where do we want to be? And this is where all of us can get involved together. And so with that being said, I will give the floor off to Carice.
All right, so you can go to the next slide. Before we get started on the presentation, we're going to ask you a few questions in an exercise called Who's in the Room. You're welcome to keep your camera on or off, but be prepared to use your emojis on your screen and not in the chat. So Brianna, if you could stop spotlighting for a second, I'm just going to do the icebreaker. Okay, so first question, put a clapping hands emoji if you are more of an introvert or a party popper emoji if you are more of an extrovert. Oh, wow. Okay, there's a good amount of introverts in here. I'm also an introvert, I forgot to do mine. Okay, next question, put a clapping hands emoji if you prefer Marvel or a party popper emoji if you prefer DC. And it's okay, Maggie, you could put it in the chat if you're able to, or answer in the chat too. Good amount. Wow. I don't think I've seen one party popper. Oh, okay. Well, for the Marvel fans in the room, there's going to be a little Marvel appearance later in the presentation. So look forward to that. And the last question is put any emoji if where you live, whether that's in a condo, a house, an apartment, wherever it may be, if there are one or more trees. Well, thank you everyone for participating. It was cool to get to know about everyone a little bit. And if you have any questions or concerns throughout the presentation, please let us know by typing in the chat or raising your hand, and we will do our best to answer your questions. I will now pass the mic to Anait, and Brianna, you could pull the presentation back up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carice, for that icebreaker. And it was interesting to see the different like perspectives in the room when it came to like extroverts and introverts. That was interesting. And I liked how like we all coincided with like Marvel. Amazing. The first section of our presentation is where are we now? So Stockton, particularly South Stockton, is affected by air pollution. And a lot of factors lead to this air pollution. However, three factors, we're going to talk about three factors in specifically that are abbreviated DOA. So the D stands for development, and development concerns like industrial buildings and transportation, like Caltrain and the Port of Stockton, which also include warehouses and factories. All of these industrial buildings and the transportation emit fossil fuels, and they also include heavy diesel trucks. So diesel in particular emits this toxin called fine particulate matter, which is abbreviated as PM 2.5. And what fine particulate matter is are tiny, well, it is tiny particles or droplets in the air that are 2.5 microns or less in width. That's why it's abbreviated PM 2.5. And the O in DOA stands for oil. And California is one of the top oil producing states in the nation. And actually, the majority of it comes from the valley, so in the San Joaquin County. In addition to that, the A stands for agriculture. And California is also one of the most productive regions to ever exist. We grow more than 250 crops annually. And this includes the use of pesticides and heavy equipment, and also the collaboration with farms and fields that add more onto this pollution that we have in Stockton too. So in addition to the last slide, South Stockton is a historically redlined community, which is most affected by exposure to fine particulate matter. And South Stockton is a food desert, meaning we lack access to stores with fresh produce and meat. And so there are a lot of fast food restaurants, as you may know. As a result, cooking contributes to 25.4% of all fine particulate matter, or PM 2.5 emissions. And that leaves Stockton in the 80th to 100th percentile in California for fine particulate matter, which is pretty high, and also leads to higher asthma and respiratory illnesses, leaving us in the 90th to 95th percentile in California. It also contributes to the urban heat island effect. And what the urban heat island effect is when the ground gets hotter because of industrial buildings, because of paved roads and streets, and traffic and industry emissions that retain heat, and also on top of that, retain heat from the sun as well. So the ground is hotter than it actually should be. Also, South Stockton has a lack of trees and parks. It has the least amount of trees and yet the highest need for trees and parks. Northwest Stockton has 23.8% tree cover, while Southwest Stockton has 12.4% tree cover, which this leaves us at an average of 50% less tree cover than Northwest Stockton. So on the next slide, Carice will talk about how to combat these issues, and for that we need to talk about Stockton's history.
Yes, so as Anai mentioned, a lot of the major air pollutants are concentrated in South Stockton, and it is because of this that South Stockton also experiences such environmental and health injustice. So this drastic difference between and South Stockton is not an accident, and one could even say it was planned. So let's go back to the root of the problem and learn about how we got here, because these present inequities can actually be traced back to redlining. Nico will drop a link in the chat containing maps that show you the different effects of air pollution throughout Stockton. And if you want, you can pull it up and see the similarities between those maps and this redlining map. So redlining was a practice created by the Federal Housing Administration and the Homeowners Loan Corporation, or HOLC for short, in 1936. So this was before the Civil Rights Movement and during the era of segregation. And redlining ranked neighborhoods from A to D. So if you lived in A neighborhoods, these were the most desirable areas for future investments and developments, and areas D were areas where investment was discouraged. So if you take a look at the map, A neighborhoods were green and B neighborhoods were blue, and they're located in the northwest region of Stockton around what is now UOP. And these neighborhoods were predominantly white and wealthy. They had more resources and financial opportunities, and they had a higher quality of life overall. And then neighborhoods ranked C and D, which are the yellow and red areas, were not given the same resources and financial opportunities, and these were also areas where BIPOC resided, BIPOC being an acronym for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color. And as you can see, these neighborhoods were located in the southern and eastern region of Stockton. And these neighborhoods included communities like Little Manila, El Barrio del Chivo, which was a Mexican neighborhood, and Boggs Tract, which was a Black neighborhood. But as we know today, Stockton is much larger than what we see in this map, and that is because Stockton continued to expand. So you can go on to the next slide. Oh, yeah. So in the north, Lincoln Village was being built, and it was an all-white neighborhood whose construction was fully funded by the government as long as the neighborhood remained white. And it was also during this time that Stockton's commercial core was moving north from downtown, which was undergoing an urban renewal. But what was actually happening in downtown was BIPOC neighborhoods were being destroyed to make room for what are now big air pollutants. So Boggs Track was destroyed to build I-5. Little Manila, Chinatown, and Japantown were destroyed to build the Crosstown Freeway, and El Barrio del Chivo and Little Italy were also destroyed. And because the land where these communities resided was cheap, as a result of disinvestment from these communities, industrial buildings and warehouses were also built here, along with like the Caltrans station and the airport. So it is important to recognize the ways in which racism and capitalism continue to pervade Stockton today, taking from Black and Brown communities to create and maintain like these wealthy and predominantly white areas. So, what are we doing about the effects of air pollution in South Stockton as a result of historic redlining and continued disinvestment? We are branching out and working together. So, there are currently 4 efforts in place. There is AB 617. AB stands for Assembly Bill, and it is a California state law that requires community and health officials to work together to mitigate environmental and health issues related to air pollution. And the goal of AB 617 is to create projects that will increase investment in urban greening. Um, One project they're working on right now is with All Saints Academy, which is one of the high priority neighborhoods in need of urban greening because of the amount of pollutants in the area. There's also community engagement, which we will address at the end of our presentation, and that's where you all get involved. And then there is cooperative management agreement, which would require the city of Stockton and San Joaquin County and other agencies like the Port of Stockton or Caltrans to provide for the management of urban greening projects, because urban greening, as amazing as it is, it also requires maintenance and it requires a lot of time and money. So if you would like to learn more about these efforts, click the links in the chat. And then finally, there is the Nature Systems Design Plan, which is what urban forestry or urban greening falls under. So all you, Anai.
Thank you so much, Carice. And yeah, so continuing the topic of urban forestry. Urban forestry is also known as urban greening, and we want to use urban greening to combat the effects of redlining that Carice had mentioned prior to this slide. And so we want to use the terminology greenlining versus redlining. So the benefits of urban forestry is that it creates barriers from pollutants. So it'll be reducing fine particulate matter exposure by 23%. It provides shade and lowers temperatures, which who doesn't want that, through evapotranspiration. And so what evapotranspiration is, it's the process by which the tree also fulfills its part in the water cycle. So it pulls moisture from the roots up to the trunk and then to the canopy and releases oxygen into the air. And so we're provided with free oxygen, which this reminds me of, I told Carice this too, this reminds me of like the Lorax and like if you ever read the Dr. Seuss books about how when there was like no trees and someone was trying to sell oxygen to make a business out of it, and yet here we have it for free. And also Nico is dropping in the chat an article if you want to read more about evapotranspiration and its process. And urban forestry also adds more nutrients into the soil, because if we include more species of different trees in the ground, like if we plant more of them, they also increase biodiversity because every tree needs different nutrients. So that's what they pull from the ground. And also with more diversity of trees, we can also have more biodiversity in animals and animal species as well, like birds and squirrels and little critters that, walk around trees and things like that. It also would produce noise reduction, which is helpful for us to concentrate in our daily and busy lives. So now, Carice and I will talk about some obstacles concerning urban forestry. Yeah, so the first obstacle is funding. Funding is one of our biggest challenges as a result of the topic urban forestry being brand new. So one of the ironies is that fossil fuel emitting companies actually give money grants for nonprofit organizations to create programs like these to talk about environmental justice issues. Also, grant money is a constant hunt because we don't know where these grants are, and so it takes time and it is time consuming. So as a result, resources are hidden because we don't know where to look most of the time because it's not a popular topic. So to get more resources out in the open and to make them more evident, we also need government interest. However, to get more government interest, we also need more public interest. And that's why discussions like these are crucial for us. And that's why we're grateful that you guys are here to discuss urban forestry with us. And now Carice will talk about another obstacle we face.
Yes. So tree trauma is something that's pretty new in the conversation, but we want to create dialogue about it because it centers the lived experiences of communities who, despite the benefits of trees, have had negative experiences with trees. And this could be linked to a history of a lack of trees in the neighborhoods, a continual lack of support from the city, and communities who also experience high rates of asthma. Trees can worsen asthma, and it's important to center them because when we fail to center them, we perpetuate this act of taking advantage of communities that have historically and continually been stolen from. And again, because tree trauma is fairly new, there's not a lot of information about it specific to Stockton. But if you'd like to learn more about it, we'll link an article in the chat that talks about Detroit, which is a community very similar to Stockton, actually, in terms of urban forestry. All right, so we are now in the final segment of our presentation, which is the future of Stockton and our call to action. But before we talk about Solar Punk and the My Free Tree program, could you go to the next slide, please? Answer this question in the chat. If you could time travel to future Stockton, what would you see and how would you get there? I also wanted to check in and make sure, and to see if anyone had any questions so far. All right, I'm seeing your answers. I'm liking these. Planting trees native to our area, robust public transportation, more small businesses, hella advocates. Yes, more water access. Okay, well, we can move on to the next slide. And Anai, if you want to add anything too before you move on to this one.
Okay, I think it was pretty good. Thank you all who participated. And Mila, yes. Wakanda, yes. We had a meeting with our moderators, which are Brie and Nico. And Nico did call to our attention about solar punk and how that could be a possible solution too. And I had no idea what solar punk was, and he told us, oh, like in Black Panther, I don't know if you guys remember how they had plants like everywhere in the city. And so I was like, oh wow, like that's crazy. We don't really think about these things, but they are a very viable solution. So as you can see, there's like plants on the ceilings and like in tight spaces. And we can continue to the next slide. Thank you, Bree. And yeah, so honestly, with solar punk, start with your imagination. I'd say sky's the limit, but it's really not. We can go like way far and beyond that. And solar punk encourages more plant species and variation in our tight city life. As you guys can see, Stockton is, beginning to be more tighter. So this is a very good solution. In this way, new sustainable life can also thrive. Everything else evolves. It is time that our approach to nature changes too and include it more in our daily lives since we're connected with nature as well. Other solutions that can also tie in with solar punk a little bit are if you have a garden, you can have like your own little garden. My dad takes care of his garden in the backyard. I have a little succulent next to me too. So if you're not like the garden type, you could have little plants around your house too. And it helps me to calm down. So I pass that to you guys too. And so next, Carice will also talk about another solution.
Yes, I loved reading all your responses. So creative. Um, okay, so the My Free Tree program provides another way for you to get involved and become a part of the urban greening efforts in Stockton. The way our moderators, Brianna and Nico, put it, urban forestry or urban greening is doing future work. We are creating today what we want to see in our children's tomorrow, and I thought that was really beautiful. The purpose of the program is to add shade, clean air, and beauty to your home and your neighborhood. And oh, I saw a question. Do you know if there is a botanical garden in Stockton? I don't actually know. However, hopefully Nico can answer your question. Um, but yes, the purpose is to also work towards rebuilding South Stockton's tree canopy. And if you would like to get involved and have a tree planted for free in your home, there are 6 easy steps. So first, you check your eligibility. So are you a South Stockton resident or do you live within the TCC border? And TCC stands for Transformative Climate Communities Program, and they support the My Free Tree program. And then you would complete an interest form and schedule an in-person tree assessment visit. And then you would develop a planting plan with an urban forester and work with them to plant your tree. And then lastly, once your tree is planted, you would stay connected with them and attend our tree care workshop series. So if you would like to learn more, you can scan this QR code, follow us on Instagram at Little Manila Stockton and at Greenlining the Hood, or contact us at trees@littlemanila.org. We will also drop links and information in the chat that if you missed any of those things. All right, so our last question or our last slide. All right, so this concludes our presentation. Thank you all so much for joining Anait and I in learning about air pollution, redlining, and urban forestry. We hope that this presentation taught you something new about yourself or your community and inspired you to plant more trees in your vision of the future and to your neighborhood. So please reach out to us if you have any more questions or want to learn more. And if you miss any of the links or do not want to go back in the chat to find them, understandable, don't worry. We created a document for you with a list of resources. And I believe there will be a post-session form at the end of the conference so you can give us feedback on our presentation. And Anai, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, you pretty much covered it all. Honestly, thank you guys so much. It's such an honor to be here and to be with you guys sharing this. I had no idea this was happening in my own community. And so it was very important for Carice and I to share it. Also, if you guys follow the resources that are handed out in the chat and everything, there are more opportunities for like tree planting as well. I know Little Manila has projects with TCC that go on and plant trees, and we've gone out to plant trees at parks in Stockton too. So that's always helpful. And once again, thank you, Bree and Nico, for everything. And thank you guys once more.
Yeah, let's give it up for Anait and Carice, everybody. Woo, let's show some love. Yeah. Woo. Great job to the both of you.
Okay, I just want to say you guys slayed the presentation first, and then also like if you guys don't know, Carice and Anait, like they're like so involved, like especially with urban forestry. Like they went out. I remember like them showing up to the Delta and like they were so educated and I was like so lost. So them being like a resource for you guys is something like so incredible because they're they're like out of this world. I can like go on forever about them, but honestly, if you guys like need like someone to talk to directly, like to get you out there like in the community, like you can talk to them because they got like everything going on. Like Anna is like one of the people that I really look up to. Like she's like slaying in Stan State. Oh my gosh, she is my role model. I love her and Carice. Anyways, that was it.